Hello everybody, welcome back to another video, as today we got another episode of reviewing NHL teams off-season so far, as today we got the Buffalo Sabres ahead of us, as we're going to be getting down to the nitty-gritty and reviewing what the Buffalo Sabres did this past off-season, which I gotta say, they did a pretty good job this past offseason. I really liked what Kevin Adams did. We will also be joined by a special guest and my main man, Pearlo Wisdom, which you'll be joining us later on in the video. So make sure to stay tuned in for that. But before we get into this video, I'd like to just say, if you are new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that like button as well. It'll be very much appreciated there, guys. So let's get into this bad boy here with the Buffalo Sabres, and honestly, I was a real big fan of what the Sabres did. As you guys all know, they lost Jack Eichel throughout the middle of the season last year, which I would say was a pretty big loss. I mean, they did get a decent amount back in Peyton Krebs, Alex Tuch. They also got Noah Ostlund, which we're going to be talking about their draft here in a very little bit. But I got to say, they did a really good job of stocking back up the shelves, especially after losing a big guy like Jack Eichel. You kind of want to stock the shelves back up, and they certainly did that in this past draft. They got Matthew Savoie, which I gotta say, I'm a real big fan of this pick. I think Matthew Savoie is going to be an amazing kind of like middle six top line center for the Buffalo Sabres for the future. He put up 90 points in 65 games. He did real well in the playoffs for the Winnipeg Ice as well. So I think this is a real good looking player for the Buffalo Sabres, and I'm a real big fan of the move. Next up, you got Noah Ostlund, which is another guy that I really like. This was a guy that I think was predicted to kind of go around this range, even a little bit higher. Kind of like a playmaking center. He's probably going to be like a top six type of guy. Definitely not going to be your first liner, but he's going to be a great top six center. So now you have a great 1-2 punch in both Savoie and Ostlund. And what I even heard about Savoie is he might be a winger as well. They might be trying him out on the winger, which is kind of what I heard from Corey Proman. Make sure to go check him out through The Athletic. I read a lot of his stuff about the prospects here for the Buffalo Sabres, and he was kind of talking about Matthew Savoie maybe becoming a winger as well, especially with how, deep the Buffalo Sabres already are center depth-wise, with Tage Thompson. You got Dylan Cousins up the middle. Hopefully Middlestat will be able to turn himself around. But you already got a decent amount of center prospects, and then, of course, knows what's going to happen this year, but there's a pretty good amount of prospects this upcoming draft, and most likely the Buffalo Sabres, I mean, they got a decent team, but I don't see him as a playoff team. But those are the draft. Yuri Kulich, I really like him as well. Great goal scorer, great shot. Had 9 goals in 49 games there for the Czech team. Did great in the Olinka. But last year also did really good in the World Juniors. Had 9 goals in 6 games. An amazing goal scorer. I'm really excited to see him as well. He's going to be like a kind of a middle six kind of guy as well for the wing. And another great, late round pick for the Buffalo Sabres. A really great draft. They even drafted a goalie and a few other players, but they really, their main focus was forwards. Their main focus was getting forwards. They didn't draft any defensemen up until the 4th round. And, I mean, that's just kind of evidence because you look at the last few drafts for the team. They drafted Samuelson and Dahlin and Bauer. They've been doing a lot of defenseman drafting over the past couple of years, especially with Ryan Johnson. They've been really focusing on drafting defensemen and developing them, and getting some big forwards in this past draft, I think, was absolutely amazing. And I really liked what they did in the last few years. So now you add whatever the fuck, the JJ Petrikov, what the fuck his name is. And then you also add in Prokhor Polpatov, which is another good name prospect there as well. You just got a lot of good things going there for the development system for the Buffalo Sabres, and I think that's a big thing that you need to focus on is your development, and they're doing an amazing job of it. Trades-wise, they didn't do a whole lot, but they did pick up Ben Bishop, mostly for the LTIR. They really didn't pick him up anything else, and they get a 7th-round pick out of it, so nothing to complain about there. Now let's get into the signings, which they didn't do a whole lot, but we'll get into a little bit of their signings that they did make. Jacob Bryson was one of the ones that they made 2 years at 1.85. I'm really a big fan of Jacob Bryson. I thought he played amazing this past season for the Buffalo Sabres. Nice young defender who plays pretty good offensively and brings some good defensive attributes as well. I think he's going to be an amazing defenseman, especially when you got a left side of Samuelson, Power, and Jacob Bryson. That is a pretty thick left-handed side, especially once you get those kind of guys going into their prime. And I mean, Matthias Samuelson, it looks like he's going to be a deadly defenseman for the Buffalo Sabres. So If you're a Buffalo Sabres fan, I would definitely be excited about that. Also, they did get Craig Anderson back on a 1-year deal. He wasn't flawless last year, but, he's going to come in there, be your backup alongside of Eric Comrie, which this was another signing we're going to be getting into a little bit more with Pearlo there. But this was another move I really liked as well. 920 save percentage this past year for the Winnipeg Jets. Really was given a good opportunity this year where he was actually able to play a decent amount of games, and he kind of took it in stride. The Winnipeg Jets weren't the best team defensively this past season, and he put up some really good numbers in front of a really bad defensive core. So I think it's gonna be pretty exciting to see what Eric Comrie will do in 30-40 games, and especially at the contract. That's really good value for Eric Comrie, and honestly, stellar deal. I don't think you could get any worse than that. Lyle Lyubushkin, I really like this move as well. Great defensive defenseman, could play down in the lower bottom of the lineup. If you need to play him a little bit higher up, you can, right? Like, you could play him alongside of Owen Power, which I could most likely see them doing Owen Power and Lyubushkin, because Lyubushkin is your stereotypical defensive defenseman. He's real sturdy, great stick, great at shot blocking, and is a real exciting player there with Lyubushkin. And then Victor Olofsson, I really didn't like this move. He's horrible 5-on-5 wise. Really gets carried on the power play. Signed a 2-year, $4.75 million deal. Now, it's not the worst because it's only 2 years, so it's not like it's the worst thing in the world. It's just a little bit of an overpayment for Olofsson. When you take a look at somebody that's produced the same amount of points this past season, getting a second contract in Kailer Yamamoto, who I would have to say he's a better 5-on-5 player than Olofsson, only got $3.1 million compared to Olofsson, who got 4.75. So you could definitely see that Olofsson got a little bit of an overpayment, but Pearlo has a theory on why Olofsson might have gotten overpaid, which we'll begin a little bit into that here in a bit, actually, because that's about it that we got to talk about there with the Boston Bruins. Nothing much else to dive into here with the team, but I really like their future. They got a lot of good things rolling for them right now. You look at their young core, next year, if you get, the blow up at Krebs, and same with Cousins and Quinn, you could see this team being real competitive. Alex Tucker's amazing for them last year. Their top line was pretty good. Jeff Skinner's starting to kind of pop back up. Tage Thomas had a great year. So there's a lot of things going right for the Buffalo Sabres, especially with that great coach in Granato. If Eric Comrie really does good in this upcoming season, they could be a really sneaky, deadly team. Now, do I see this team being in the playoffs? No. I just don't see it happening, especially with how well the Ottawa Senators got, and the same with the Detroit Red Wings. Unless Dylan Cousins and Jack Quinn become like all-stars this upcoming season, I really just don't see it. But for now, guys, I'm going to send it off to me and Pearlo, as we're going to be jumping more into some more details talking about the Buffalo Sabres and all the moves that they just recently did. So stay tuned to that, and make sure to enjoy that, and I'll see you guys all later. Enjoy. I want to welcome into the portion where I get a special guest to join me and talk about the Buffalo Sabres and whatever team we're doing at the time, and help me review the team that we're reviewing, and that is the Buffalo Sabres. And I got my good pal Pearlo Wisdom joining me today. Make sure to go check out all his links. His links will be down in the description below for his YouTube channel. Go check him out. He does some amazing stuff up on there. So let's jump right into talking about the Buffalo Sabres and what Kevyn Adams did. This is his second year as GM for the Buffalo Sabres, and I gotta say, I've been pretty well impressed with what Adams has done, especially this year. I think he did a pretty good, really good draft. Some good signings. Olofsson was a bit of an overpayment, but you get a pretty good goalie in Eric Comrie, who you get to try out this year. So let's jump into the first topic, and that is the draft, where they had 3 first-round picks. They really had a lot of picks in this entire draft, and I gotta say, they really stacked up the forward core. So tell me how you feel about the Buffalo Sabres drafts, and especially Matthew Savoie, because I think that will be a pivotal player for the future of the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah, it's funny. I've heard everything about Savoie. I've heard that he's like a second line guy, possibly a third. But most of the people that I talk to say that his motor doesn't stop running.
Yeah.
He just keeps on going. And at the very least, if that's the case, if he's a guy that's can have that high energy, even if he doesn't make it as a number one, he'll probably have a place somewhere in the lineup. Yeah. And also, his playmaking is unreal.
It really is.
So I've heard two people compare him to Backstrom.
Mm-hmm.
And so And then I've heard people say that he's higher, but I think it was probably one of the safer picks in that spot.
Yeah. I think so too, and then you also get like Uslan and also Yuri Kulevic, which with Kulevic, late first round pick, but great goal scorer. And not just that, even Noah Olsen could be like a second, third line type of guy. So you're already building up a pretty good center core with Cousins. You already got Tage Thompson, and people were even saying that Savoy might even be a winger more than a centerman as well.
Yeah, I heard like he was pretty good on the half boards on the left
Yeah,
side, so that would be great for the power play. Definitely. I mean, usually, another guy that maybe he might
Jaden
kind of compare
Schwartz,
to is,
Jaden Schwartz as well.
oh, there you go, or Strom.
Yeah, that as well. Yeah,
Somebody like that. That's the kind of what he kind of feels like. And if he can play multiple positions, that's awesome. But Noah Osling, um, and Gravite, everybody knows
yeah.
Gravite. I think he's one of the best guys at the draft, especially for how young he is. He's fantastic. And he had him at number 7. He says, and last time he had somebody way higher, he happened to be a Swede as well. Then he went,
Yeah.
and people rejected him. Was Lundell.
And the Dell ended
So
up being killer.
yeah, and so I could see. I mean, if he's saying that, there's a really good chance Oslin's going to be way better than we're anticipating. And if that's the case, they knocked it out of the park. I honestly, I don't know much about Yuri Kulich. That one kind of, I for some reason I missed Kulich when looking at all the prospects. I didn't get much on him, but Noah Oslin, I think they could have knocked that one out of the park for sure.
I think so too. I think without a doubt this was like the stellar part of the offseason for the Buffalo Sabres, and that's what it should be when you're a rebuilding team like the Buffalo Sabres who's still building up their squad, is to have some really good drafts. And this year they really built up their offensive core. The last few years they were focusing on defense. Now they're getting that offense to help out the rest of the core, which I think they had a phenomenal job. They only did one trade as well, which we're not going to get into too deep because they just picked up Ben Bishop for the Dallas Stars. Just a cap move. Probably will end up on the LTIR because Ben Bishop is retired, so we won't be seeing him play going up into this upcoming season. So we'll get into some free agent signings, and we'll talk about a few players. We'll talk about the re-signings that the Buffalo Sabres did first. Re-signing Craig Anderson to a one-year, $1.5 million deal. Jacob Bryson to a really nice 2-year deal at 1.850, which is really nice. And then also Vinny Hinoshroza as well at a 1-year deal, which is not bad either. And they didn't lose out on a whole lot. They only lost Mark Pysyk and Colin Miller, which they replaced him with some pretty good players. So tell me a little bit more about some of the re-signings and what's your thoughts on them?
Well, it was Victor Olofsson was a little bit of a head
that one
scratch.
too.
Yeah, I didn't really understand that one. To tell you the honest truth, it's not something a player that I think they really needed. I loved Eric Conley.
That
I
move
love
was
that
amazing. 2 years,
That
1.8.
Yeah, I think I think like he really played well in Winnipeg. He's got a great attitude. He's worked his way up. I think they could have really hit one right out
Well,
here.
remember, Eric Comrie was like one of the most talked about prospects when he was in Winnipeg when he was really young, and then he just never really. I think they kind of rushed him, and then he was up and down, up and down. Wasn't able to find that consistent play. Played great in the AHL, but was never able to get that consistent playing time, and never really was given an opportunity. He only played like 1 to 3 games each and every year that he played in the NHL until this year, where he was the main backup for the Jets, and he played really good. So I think this will definitely be where you'll definitely see him take a bigger role into this upcoming year.
Yeah, he kind of has taken the trajectory of Campbell, really. Campbell kind of had
Exactly,
that
yeah.
struggled at first and stuff like that. But the games I watched in Winnipeg, I was like, wow, this guy has come a long way. And I was looking to see who would pick him up, and Buffalo did. And I thought they just did a hell of a job on that. So that was probably my favorite signing that they did. I'm kind of glad that they just sort of didn't do much as far as adding free agents because they have a lot of talent to see what it's going to look like for them before I think they can really throw too many guys in
Yeah,
there.
and I think that's why this year they really didn't sign, because like the Labushkin signing was really good as well. The 2 years at 2.75, bringing in a solid defensive defenseman to kind of round out the defensive core when you already have a pretty solid defensive core. We've seen what Matthias Samuelsson did last year. He was
Oh,
amazing.
unbelievable defense
So
core,
you
yeah.
already got a really, really good defensive core building up there in Buffalo, and now you're going to be seeing how well your offensive core will be coming up this year. So not really adding a whole lot, I think benefited them a lot, because you're going to be able to see a lot of those younger players. And let's talk a little bit about Victor Olofsson. He got a big 2 year deal at $4.75 million. And we're seeing players like Kailer Yamamoto, who produced the same as Olofsson, just get $3 million. So this was a crazy overpayment, because I think Olofsson is kind of a liability 5-on-5 wise. He hasn't showed very good, signs. Uh, why sign him to this type of deal, and why overpay him?
Like I said, it was a head scratcher to me. You got Jack Quinn, who looked like he was going to be really
Yeah,
good there. I guess it's just a filler in case Jack Quinn doesn't, pan out next year. But Alex Tuck is there. You can move. Who else can
you
move?
even got
You can move
Okposo for
Skinner.
the next year. So like, why Victor Olofsson? Why spend
That's
the money on a guy? And I mean, it's not gonna hurt the team too much right now, because they're in a good spot cap wise. They still got $19 million. They're gonna have some cap come off the books next year, but it definitely is a little. And I would have to say this is one of the worst moves that the Buffalo Sabres did this offseason. And that's saying a lot, because it wasn't like it was the worst move in the world to make, because it's only a 2 year
uh,
deal.
mhm. And he does have an amazing shot. It's possible that they just think that they saw that his confidence was coming, and at 27, if he can find confidence with his shot,
Hmm.
he can put a lot away on the power play there, for them. So that is really all I could say about that. His defensive work is
Yeah.
terrible. He's not a good 5-on-5 guy. He's basically a power play specialist at 4.7, and that's that. I don't like it all. I didn't get it, but
Yeah, honestly, I don't get it either. That was definitely a head scratching move. But honestly, I really like what the Buffalo Sabres are doing. I really like the make of their team. You could really see that there's some really, going into next year, this team, could potentially be a really good team, depending on the development of Cousins and, Jack Quinn, same with Krebs and Middlestad, and same with their defensive core with Owen Power and stuff like that as well. So it's going to be an interesting team coming into this upcoming year.
I have an idea as to why they signed Victor Olofsson.
Why is that? Power play?
No, because they're going to have to re-sign Rasmus Dahlin. And
Mm.
I'm almost like Dahlin and Olofsson are close friends.
Oh,
Sometimes I think teams do these sort of things to make sure, like, keep their other player happy.
yeah.
Like they can't lose Darlene. They got to get him on a long term. He's looking like better and better all the time ever since Granado got there. So I think we got cap room. Let's make Darlene happy here until we get him signed, and then we'll get rid of Olsen. Maybe something like that.
I think so. That is probably the case as well. Because Rasmus Dahlin, like pairing up alongside of Samuelson, I think that'll be probably one of the best defensive pairings here in the very coming future, especially with how well Samuelson did in his first year. So very
Yeah.
exciting team. Now let's get down to the grading of this past off season. I honestly give this team an A-, because I really liked what they did. The draft was really good. You stacked up on more of the forward prospects. The only bad move that you could really see was Victor Olofsson. You didn't lose anybody that was valuable to the team, and you signed pretty good contracts. The Bryson, Eric Comrie will be pretty pivotal to the team. You don't have to rely all on Craig Anderson this upcoming season. You're going to have to rely on a young guy in Eric Comrie, but we'll have to see how he takes the reins. That move could potentially be an absolute steal, and if it's not, you could just go back to the free agency again and see what you can get next year. The Labushka move, I liked it as well. Good depth defenseman, can bring in some good heavy minutes, play on the PK, and play really well defensively. So yeah, I give this team an A-. And what's your grading on the Buffalo Sabres offseason?
I think I'm gonna go B plus, but what's the difference?
Yeah.
Really, B plus, A minus, something like that. And again, it was mostly because you're just wrapping up a lot of money on Victor
Yeah.
Olofsson. Although they did, I do like the Eric Comrie signing. If they go in, if they actually are good enough, and I think it's very possible, I think it's possible with this young defense that they bloom together this year.
Mhm.
And this team is close to a playoff team. I think it's possible. I don't think it's likely, but it's possible. And you certainly don't, as much as I like the prospect of what Eric Comrie can be, right now, I would not want that combination going
No.
into any
No,
playoffs.
no.
So that would be the only reason why, but that's probably splitting hairs a little bit because I think they look at their own roster and say we're really young. Even if we do make the playoffs, it's not very likely we'll get
Yeah.
past the first round. So we'll see how Eric Comrie does, and we'll keep on looking for a goaltender if he doesn't work out. So I give it a B plus.
Yeah, that's the thing. You could flop between the both B plus, A minus. I think the Buffalo Sabres did pretty good this offseason. Very well impressed, especially since they're rebuilding. They still have a ton of picks going into next year, and they could still move some players around if need be with Pozo and a few of their depth players if they do want to bring in some more picks coming in towards next year. So great offseason by the Buffalo Sabres. Everyone, make sure to go check out Pearlo Wisdom. All his links will be down in the description below for his Twitter and his YouTube channel, so make sure to go check him out. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you guys all in the next one. Adios, amigos.